We are starting chapter 19, beginning on page 243, and this will go to page 262. This is called Rockstar. As fate would have it, the last time I ever had the dream was early in the morning on Friday, April 4th. That was the day of the concert, so it might have been nice to have slept well, but by the time I had showered the dream away and headed downstairs for breakfast, I was so nervously hyper that there was no way a lack of sleep was going to slow me down. I would not have to crash on Saturday. I would just have to crash on Saturday. My mom and Jeffrey were down in Philadelphia, but they were due to get back in time for the concert. My dad and I had never spoken about it, his choice not to attend the concert, but I know my mom and he had had at least one discussion about it, the kind of discussion that rattles your teeth, that you can't keep overhearing no matter how loud you crank your Discman. So that morning, when the issue was on both of our minds, he and I didn't have a single safe word to say to each other. It was weird being nervous and so quiet at the same time. But as soon as I got to school, the quiet part became a memory. Renee assaulted me in the homeroom with a copy of the program in her hand. It was thicker than any school program I had ever seen, with a beautiful glossy cover shot of a band on stage. When you opened the program, there was Jeffrey. His kindergarten photo was blown up nearly to a full page size, and beneath it, there was a statement in neat black calligraphy. All proceeds from tonight's concert will benefit the Jeffrey Alper Medical Trust. Simply unbelievable. Thanks to the amazing brains of these two girls, Jeffrey had gone from being a regular little kid to being a medical trust. I had to admit, despite the strangeness of the whole thing, Renee and Annette had done an incredible job with the whole project. When the homeroom bell rang, Annette came rushing in to give me the latest totals on box office receipts and the profits from the program ads. As soon as she and Renee were standing together, I noticed that they had gotten really short haircuts. Really short haircuts. But you know, me by now, I just chalked it up to coincidence, thanked them for their hard work, answered a few questions about Jeffrey, and went to class. That day, Miss Palma, 3 tickets and a gigantic basket of cookies for the bake sale, was showing a movie based on the last book we had read. So of course, I spaced out completely. I couldn't even tell you what I thought about, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't Homer's use of foreshadowing in the Odyssey. Mostly, I think I practiced playing the All City songs in my head. Somehow, between Miss Palma saying, please take note of the dramatic irony in this scene, and my brain saying, beep bop, did it do wah, I got through the class. The whole day was like that. But eventually, even a Friday at middle school has to come to an end. The last bell rang and I started to head out for the bus. Then the intercom in Miss Watcher's room buzzed and I got a call to the office. Now that put a lump in your throat, right? On the way there, I alternated between running so I could find out the news fast and trudging so I wouldn't have to know yet. Either way, my mind never slowed down for a second. Oh, geez. Grandma fell and broke her hip. Oh, God. Dad is here to kidnap me, so I can't be at the concert. He'll probably set me up a slide rule and a pile of tax returns in some cheesy motel by the interstate. All he has to do is hold me for about 6 hours and it will be over. My hopes, my dreams, my big conga solo, ruined. Plus, I hate math. And while these surface thoughts were providing some distraction, I knew that the other 9/10 of the mental iceberg, the deadly part that was hidden below, was all about Jeffrey. When I got there, my mom and brother were standing by the chairs that the bad kids sit while they're waiting to get reamed out by the principal. My mom was chatting calmly with one of the secretaries while the other was giving Jeffrey chocolates from a big jar on her desk. Naturally, I had been going to the school for 3 years without ever being offered candy from the lady's desk, but whatever. Jeffrey spotted me right away. Stephen, guess what? Today is the concert. Yeah, buddy, I know. What's going on? Are you all right? Was your blood work okay? I don't know. I'm only 5. There was a clown in my hospital room today. He was pretty cool. He painted my face so I could be Spider-Man. I wanted green Power Ranger, but the clown said he didn't have enough green face paint. Isn't that weird? He wasn't such a prepared clown. I don't think. I needed some facts and I needed them pronto. Mom, don't interrupt, Stephen. Mom, is everything okay? Sure. Then why are you here? Why did you page me and give me a heart attack? We were on our way home and I thought you might like to spend some time with your family on your big day, so we picked you up. Don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic, Mom. I was worried. Well, worry no more. Your mother is on the scene and everything is under control. Yeah, things have been completely out of hand before she stepped into the rescue to rescue me heroically from my long, painful ride with Annette and Renee. Thanks for the thought, Mom, but I am entitled to a complimentary bus ride home at taxpayers' expense, and I'd hate to disappoint the taxpayers, so I'll just be on my way then. Stephen, wait, I want to see you. I missed you. They did. They did a spinal tap. They did me a spinal tap. It was scary. Sigh. So long, my girls. Hello, my boy. On my way home, my mother briefed me about Jeffrey's treatment. His counts still didn't look good, and Dr. Moses had almost kept him in the hospital for another few days. But then my mom told the doctor about the big concert. He had agreed to discharge Jeffrey with another specific warning to rush to the ER if anything didn't seem right. I was grateful to my mom for going to bat about this. With my dad refusing to attend, my 15 minutes of fame would have been pretty lonely without her and Jeffrey. I mean, I would still have known, like half the audience and if my grandparents weren't going to miss this for anything. But still, it was nice to know that I'd have a couple of relatives there that didn't need to chug a can of Geritol to stay awake for the whole performance. For his part, Jeffrey did seem kind of wiped out. On the other hand, he had also definitely been all psyched up to see me play. My mom had explained to him that the concert was going to raise money for the treatment, and he should thank people for coming, and he should behave himself like a gentleman, blah, blah, blah. But he hadn't been particularly interested in any of that. His big goal for the evening was to shout out, "Yay, Stephen, that's my brother," every time I hit the drum. Back at the house, we still had about an hour and a half to kill before I was supposed to be at the high school. I was a madman. I paced back and forth in my room, laying out, refolding, and double-checking my clothes, All City Jazz Band t-shirt and black jeans, as if there were a way to screw up the putting on of a uniform. Then I stalked downstairs to the kitchen and laid out 3 different snack cakes, agonizing over which one would provide the best music energy boost. Well, the chocolate-covered, chocolate-filled chocolate donut provides both sugar and caffeine, yet the vanilla snack cake is even sweeter for the quick burst of power. And what the classic apple pie is, it is individually wrapped in waxed paper for freshness and probably provides traces of at least one vitamin. In the end, my mother walked in and insisted I eat a yogurt, as if that were food. I knew the band would be having the traditional post-concert pizza delivered to the rehearsal room, but honestly, was I supposed to survive on nothing but bacteria-laden milk solids for the next several hours? A compromise was reached, and I am pleased to report that vanilla yogurt makes quite an edible topping for an apple pie. I bounced around the house, trying not to wake Jeffrey, who had dozed off in the living room couch. I read Modern Drummer magazine for 5-minute stretches. In between, I paced some more. Occasionally, I peeked out of the front window in the hopes that my father had changed his mind and was at the very moment pulling up into the house. But who was I kidding? This time crawled by like a tortoise with arthritis. But finally, the kitchen clock said 5:17. It was time to roll out. I shouted for my mom, woke Jeffrey up, ran upstairs, changed into my concert clothes, put on my shoes, and was standing by the door in the garage by 5:19, chanting, "Let's go, come on." Feel free to try it at home. By the way, moms love it. I practically hurled Jeffrey into the booster seat and dove headlong into the car after him. I was in the mood to peel out, burn rubber, lay the pedal to the metal. I wanted my mom to skid her way to the concert. Like maybe we could get pulled over for speeding and my mom could tell the officer, "But sir, do you know who's in the back seat? That's Stephen Alper, the second drummer for All City Band. And the concert starts in less than an hour." Then the cop could dash back into his car, called headquarters, and get us a motorcycle escort to the to the high school. Or my mom could just put there like as usual, stately, 31 miles an hour. Jeffrey and I bounced and chattered in the back seat like two bald monkeys on a sugar high. Either way, I suppose we wound up at the high school. Jeffrey insisted on coming with me into the band room, which was all right, since the concert was for him. When we entered, I almost had a heart attack. Every single member of the band was wearing a matching red baseball cap. Did I miss a memo or something? Had I screwed up my uniform after all? My mom looked at me. I looked at my mom. Jeffrey ran around the room oblivious, and then somebody spoke. It was Biff, of all people. Jeffrey, I have something to tell you. We, the members of the All City Jazz Ensemble, would like to present you with a gift of honor for your courage, your good cheer, and the inspiration you give all of us. Well, that was laying it on with a trowel, but okay. We had our interest any He had our interest anyway. So, Jeffrey, we hereby proclaim you to be an honorary member of this band. It is my pleasure to give you this official All City t shirt and this very special All City ball cap. He took off his own ball cap and gave it to Jeffrey. Underneath, he was bald. Biff had shaved his head in tribute to my brother. Just as I started to get a mental grasp on this, everyone else reached for their hats too. At a signal from Annette, who was standing with Renee by the piano, they all whipped off their hats as well. My mom was the only person in the room with long enough hair to comb. I flashed back to Annette and Renee's matching super short do's, and suddenly it all made sense. Suddenly, too, I had a huge lump in my throat. Jeffrey was running all over the room, hugging everyone, rubbing players' heads for good luck, and my mom was standing there next to Mr. Watrous, who, his natural baldness, had accused him of a pre-show razoring festivities. There were unconsequently tears welling up in her eyes, but she also looked happy. Honestly, when I saw that look on my mom's face, I practically ran over to Biff and hugged him myself. We hung out for a while. Jeffrey ran up to me and buried his head in my stomach. I sort of wrestled free. He looked right up at my eyes and whispered, "You're the best drummer in the world." Then my mom started walking out with him so they could find their reserved front and center seats in the auditorium. When she opened the door, my dad almost fell into the room. He had made it after all. When we saw the room full of bare scalps, though, he immediately got kind of grim facial expression. He gave me a half wave, mumbled good luck, and wheeled right out of the room to lead my mom and Jeffrey to their seats. Mr. Watrous gathered us all around, gave us a big pep talk, and led us downstairs onto the stage. The curtain was closed, so we had a few minutes to set up before everyone would see us. We all busied ourselves with the little things musicians do right before they play: testing spit valves, applying last-minute drops on valve oil, checking the lugs on the snare drum and the height of the cymbal. In short order, we were ready. I was nervous but glad that the big night was about to get started. I sat down behind the drum kit. I was playing set for the first tune, adjusted the sheet music on the stand, wiped my hands on my grubby little towel I had kept in my stick bag for that purpose, and I took a deep breath. Mr. Watrous tapped his baton on the podium. The curtain opened. When the shiny heads of this entire band come visible in the stage lights, the audience was dead silent. Then, as we began to realize that what we were seeing, I could hear the buzz of whispers, then gasps, and then a slow building crescendo of applause. Before we even played a note, we got a standing ovation. Mr. Watrous led the applause rise and then fall a bit. And then, bam, he counted us right into the first tune, Mambo Number 5 by Perez Prado. I don't really remember playing a single note of the first 5 or 6 songs. I can only recall the nonstop swell of emotion that we were all feeling. The band, Mr. Watrous, the audience, and I hoped Jeffrey. I hoped Jeffrey. Every song went better than the one before. Every solo got hotter and hotter, more and more beautiful. The fast numbers were a riot of energy, and the ballads put the entire place into some kind of powerful floating dream state. I've never experienced anything like it, but I knew that the entire point of playing music was so to hope that once in a while you could bring this feeling to the audience of people. When the curtain closed for intermission, the place went up again. It was great. We all took our time out on stage, getting our instruments squared away, flapping fives, rubbing heads, weird sensation, by the way, and just basking in the success of the first set. Then Mr. W told us to go back to the band room and get drinks, hit the restrooms, and relax for a little while. I set the congas at the height I liked. I was tired and thirsty, but I couldn't wait to come back down and play the Latin pieces I had been sweating over all year. Brian tapped me on the shoulder and gestured with his thumb toward the stairs. We walked up. At the top of the steps, just outside the band room, my mom was having what looked like an intense discussion with Mr. Stoll, maybe even a discussion. She turned to me with alarming fake sweet smile. She only uses when she's got me totally busted for something. In the syrupy voice that always goes with the smile, she spoke to me. You're playing very well tonight, Stephen. Thanks, Mom. Very well. Thanks again, especially for a kid who hasn't paid for a drum lesson in over a month. Ouch. Then she surprised me. Mr. Stoll and possibly even herself by grabbing me up in a big bear hug. You are a wonderful son and a wonderful man. Yet another parent busting forth with the man thing. I've had to check my chest for signs of hair when I got home. Mr. Stoll broke the moment by pounding me on the shoulder. You are rocking the joint, kid. I love the big triplet fill in Satin Doll, and your four-limbed independence is really coming along. I can't wait to hear the Dizzy Gillespie tune. Then Mr. W called in the band members into the room, so I thanked Mr. Stoll and hurried in. My dad and Jeffrey were there. Mr. Watrous got everyone quiet and then gestured to my dad. Evidently, I couldn't believe this. My father wanted to address the band. He cleared his throat twice, paused for a long, uncomfortable moment, then spoke. I almost didn't come here tonight. I'm a proud man, I guess, and I didn't want the idea of accepting charity. I looked around and saw the other kids and Mr. W were looking rather nervous. Even my wife couldn't get me to come. I was all ready to go to work, bury myself in a pile of paper, and tell myself I was helping my family by earning more money. But at about 5 o'clock, as everyone else in my office was leaving for the weekend to go home to their families, I realized that he faltered for a moment, and again I saw that people just didn't know how to take his speech. I don't know. I guess I realized that my family needs a dad more than they need a few extra bucks. Jeffrey, my sweet little boy, needs to be around needs me to be around to support him when he isn't feeling well. My wife over there needs me around to support her all the time. And my big talented boy over there, the one who's trying to stare at his shoes until I stop talking. At this, there was some laughter. He deserves to have his father see what an amazing musician he is. He's also an amazing brother and an amazing guy. I know you call him the peasant. More laughter. But I think he's a prince. Thank you, Stephen, for watching out for your family and when your father wasn't. And thank you all city members for a great concert and marvelous show of support and for listening to me ramble. One more laughter. My mom walked over holding Jeffrey's hand and kissed my dad. It is always a little weird watching your rents kiss, even when it's not in a room full of people who actually know you. But this was kind of nice. It occurred to me that was the first time I'd seen them kiss in a while. Then I looked down at Jeffrey, who was a really miserable looking face, like he was tasting something vile. Turns out he was. The next moment, he ran over to the trash can and vomited into it. I ran over to him and got my arms around him. Just then the lights blinked. Annette and Renee were at the door, bringing glad tidings of box office and bake sales. Without all the receipts having been counted yet, and the running total for the evening was already over $21,000. Half of the room cheered while the other half, the half that had noticed Jeffrey run, was just standing around looking edgy because, once again, I wasn't really worried yet. Jeffrey's meds made him nauseous all the time. The real danger sign would be a fever, so I felt Jeffrey's head. and it was really hot. I hated to say what I said next. I knew it was going to cause some trouble, but I also knew what the doctors had said and not delaying treatment at this point. Mom, I think Jeffrey has a temp. This was a little wave. This set off a little wave of alarm. My parents knew somebody had to go rushing out of there with Jeffrey to the ER, but who? One of them? Both? And was I supposed to skip out on the biggest moment of my life to go with them? Jeffrey looked at me. Stephen, I feel really bad, and Matt Medic is at home again. Please come with me. I'm scared. You know how sometimes when you have a high pressure decision to make, you feel like everybody is looking at you? Well, in this case, everyone really was looking at me. Annette, Renee, Mr. W, Mom, Dad, Jeffrey, 4 trombone players. For God's sake, was I supposed to walk out on the music for my brother? Or was I supposed to stay and play the concert? I looked at all the faces. I wasn't sure. I whipped my head in every direction, searching for some clue in the eyes around me. And then I got a clue from a girl I had only ever met once. Stay with your brother, Stephen. Stay with him, no matter what. Do you promise? I had promised Samantha that I would be there for Jeffrey. There would be other concerts. Mr. W, I have to. I know. Go. My eyes started to well up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was supposed to be the big star. Stephen, you have never been more of a star to me than you are at this moment. Go take care of your brother. We'll be fine. Mom was on her way out the door. Dad was right behind her, carrying Jeffrey. I started after them, but Renee and Annette were there in front of me. Renee hugged me and wished me luck. Then Annette put her casted hand on my shoulder and wasn't sure what to say. Some team we make, huh, Annette? You can play the concert, and I can play to have to run out. Then she put her good hand on my other shoulder and gave me something to wonder about. She said, I think we make a great team. And she kissed me on the cheek. As I ran out of the room to chase after the distant backs of my parents, my mind was reeling. Annette had kissed me. Who would have thunk it? That's the end of chapter 19 at the end of page 262.